Welcome to another edition of Boxing Info. I'm your host, The Islander, and this is going to be the third try at this video. Yesterday I recorded one that was 22 minutes long and found out there was no audio on it. So today we're going to try this on the iPad, and we're also going to try to upload it for the first time since we've switched internet providers here at the office. And what I was going to try to tell you is, bear with me one second here. There we go. What I was going to try to tell you is that one of the reasons why I've been dormant is obviously the pushback since Pacquiao, the debacle of Pacquiao and Mayweather, and also, more importantly, the state of boxing has been deteriorating in my opinion over the course of probably the last 10 or 15 years. And with that said, there are a few highlights and some things that have me encouraged, like the primetime boxing that's on free TV, as well as somebody getting the picture now that the best fighters have to fight each other, otherwise the sport's going to die a slow and then eventually a quick death. With that said, I got like Skyfall playing in the background on a notebook over there testing a battery. So if you hear any music or crazy, yelling or whatnot, that's what it's coming from. I do want to talk about where the boxing industry is and where I think it is, and that is that they're operating very much like any other industry dominated by big corporations, in which despite what we want as consumers, we're being forced upon products forced upon us. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about, have you ever noticed at the end of January or between the end of January and the beginning of March, there's some type of a pay-per-view event, and then, sometime in the first week of May, around the Cinco de Mayo, there's another pay-per-view event, and we may have something in the summer, but usually the next flag we find is in between the second and third week of September, Mexican Independence Day. There's a big pay-per-view extravaganza, and then something in the last quarter. And that sounds to me very much like corporate America, how they're working quarter to quarter, raking in profits and budgeting and all this other stuff. And we, the consumers, suffer because of it. So and I'm very encouraged, as I was saying, by the free TV boxing. Was it PBC or PB, whatever it is? It's on NBC and also on CBS or Showtime CBS. And our attention's also been taken by this political season that's been going on here in the United States. It's been going on for almost a year and a half now, and it's dominating almost every day in the news where I am. But with that said, I do want to talk about a couple of things, some fighters and some things that have happened recently and some things that are going to happen in the future. And I also want to run this idea by you. What might make it easier for me to make videos, besides changing the internet service, which is now on the cable company, where it's supposed to be 150 down and 20 up, as compared to the DSL or the AT&T UVerse, which was just less than a meg up. It would take all day to upload a video, basically, with people working in this office. What I was going to suggest is, and I want to get your opinion on this, how many of you, and please in the comments let me know, would be more favorable if I was to upload videos to Twitter, where I know there's only 140 characters that you can tweet and all that crap. I'm not big into that, but I think there's probably less regulation of the videos and scrutiny of the videos on Twitter than there is on YouTube, which I'm getting message after message about copyright infringement for a song inside a video, and I'm thinking to myself, I didn't put the song in the video. I mean, ESPN or somebody else did, and there's people making copyright claims on songs that are inside a video from ESPN that are uploaded. I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with these people in California? Don't they understand that I didn't direct and create and put together these videos myself? It's somebody else's stuff that was on free TV. And I'm just kind of very tired of all the nonsense that goes on with YouTube. But with that said, I don't know if there's any limitations on the time of a video that you could, that time limitations or anything like that on Twitter or anything of that nature. But with that said, 5 minutes into this, let's talk about some of the fighters. I got 4 things I want to talk about in the past, and then look at a couple of things in the future. Saul Alvarez, Canelo, basically probably had 2 fights since the last time I've done a video, or maybe I covered the one-punch knockout over Amir Khan. And then he went down and weighed at 154 to fight WBO champion Liam Smith, who he gave a comprehensive beatdown to with multiple knockdowns and cuts and just a massive body beating. And winning by knockout in the 9th round. Listen, Saul Alvarez, as we all know, is now the new boxing cash cow. He's the guy you go to fight to lose against, but get your biggest payday of your career. That's the way this works. There's been a succession of them, and this really started outside the heavyweight division back with Sugar Ray Leonard. It's one of the things that probably eats at Marvin Hagler's skin even today. Excuse me, you have Sugar Ray Leonard, then you have Julio Cesar Chavez, then you have Oscar De La Hoya, then you have Floyd Mayweather Jr. with Manny Pacquiao, and now it's been the mantle's been passed on to Canelo. We all want to see Canelo against Triple G, Golovkin, and I hope I don't sneeze, who has been hammering for a fight with Canelo, and obviously the promoters, meaning Alvarez's promoters, want to let that fight marinate as long as possible. Triple G, on the other hand, has been taking on all comers, and one of the things that encourages me about this whole scenario, it frustrates all of you, is that boxing is starting to correct itself. It's like self-correcting, actually. And this looks very much like it did 30-something years ago, where you have a dominant middleweight champion, who was Marvin Hagler at that time. Now it's Triple G. And he will take on all comers, and that even means a welterweight titleist moving up to fight him. Marvin Hagler fought Tommy Hearns. Marvin Hagler was about to fight Wilfred Benitez, but Wilfred Benitez got knocked off by Mustafa Hamsho on free TV in a 10-round fight. So he fought Roberto Duran, who had basically won one of the most dominant, if not the greatest lightweight champion of all time, had won a world title at welterweight, had won another title at junior middleweight, and moved up to fight Marvin Hagler. So they'll take on the guys moving up in weight to just, and this is just like back in Sugar Ray Robinson's day, where he was the middleweight champion and fought Carmine Basilio, and the what I call the bygone era. So while Triple G was doing this, he ran into a stiff test in Kell Brook, and most of us thought that Kell Brook would be washed away in just a couple of 3 or 4 rounds. He put on, basically, let's put it this way, in my opinion, Kell Brook losing to Triple G was a win. He was never knocked off his feet. He made an excellent account of himself, and in all honesty, Triple G, I think, was ill before the fight, just like the broadcaster said. But being the ultimate professional, he would not admit to it, and he just carried on business. And I think that he would have won the fight by stoppage probably around the 8th or 9th round if the fight was let to go on before Brook's corner threw in the towel. But I think that was probably an excellent risk to reward assessment for both of them, because Triple G went to London or to the UK, and Kell Brook moved up 2 weight divisions to take this challenge, much like Amir Khan did. And I think that even though both of them came out with a stoppage loss in their fights, I think that Kell Brook was the winner, basically the winner over Khan in that regard. So, and Triple G is in right now, I think, contract negotiations via a purse bid with Danny Jacobs in a mandatory fight, which I would make Triple G a strong favorite in that fight. And I don't think the Jacobs people really want that fight to be made or think they can win that fight. Otherwise, they would. I mean, it's almost like they're negotiating their way out of the fight. The next thing I want to talk about is Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, who has looked shaky in his last 2 fights, against McWilliams Arroyo and against Carlos Cuadras. Basically, his last fight at 112 where he was straining, and his moving up to fight at 115 against Cuadras. One of the things I wanted to point out is both of these fights have a common thread in them, and that is, for the first time in a long time, Chocolatito's fighting taller, stronger, broader, sturdy fighters. And what I mean by that is he's fighting guys that can take his... He's fighting fighters that can take his shots and return fire. His punches are not having the same effect on Arroyo or Cuadras or anybody at 115 as they did on some of the guys at 108 and 112. And I'm just making this point that if I'm advising Chocolatito Gonzalez, this is the end of the road as far as moving up in weight. 115 is the limit. You're probably going to lose at this weight class, and there is no way I think you can even barely... I think you can compete on level at 118, but you're going to suffer the same fate that Vic Darchinyan or Nonito Donaire did when they moved up one weight division too many. And I just want you to use your imagination for a second. If we were able to take Chocolatito Gonzalez against McWilliams Arroyo that night, and we took McWilliams Arroyo out of the fight, and we took Nonito Donaire from the time he fought for the title against Vic Darchinyan, and we put him in McWilliams Arroyo's place, who do you think would win that fight? In my opinion, I think Nonito Donaire would have won. I don't think Chocolatito would have been able to hurt Donaire at 112, and I think Donaire would have been able to hurt him. And that's just my opinion. I think he's a fantastic fighter. He's one of the top 2 or 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world. He's done all the leg work and the road work. But I think that 115 is the limit for him because his punches are not having the same effect on the bigger guys. The last is Terence Crawford, who I think quietly might be the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. And the reason why I'm saying this is that going into the Victor Postol fight, I had the intentions of making a video to preview this. Because before, I didn't know who was going to win, and I thought that this was basically like a poor man's version of Arguello and Pryor, with a couple of wrinkles to it. I thought the more dynamic, angular boxer puncher was Crawford, and the more straight up, tall and powerful boxer was Postol. And Terence Crawford has this way of actually doing what Mayweather used to do, where he would basically look at the puzzle that's in front of him for a round, 2, 3, 4 even, depending on how dangerous it was, and then apply the solution to the puzzle. And once he does that, the fight's effectively over. And that's what happened with Postol. The second Postol couldn't defend against his straight left hand, the fight was over. And most people, and I agree with the commentators in this fight, that most people were surprised that Postol was able to either get to the end, or that Crawford backed off the gas and allowed him to to basically survive. Because I think if he would have pushed it, he could probably stop Postol. Even scoring two knockdowns, one of them kind of questionable, but more of a balance thing. But I think that that was his signature win right now. Some would argue it was Yuriorkis Gamboa, and right now Terence Crawford's scheduled to fight John Molina Jr. on December 10th, and I'm expecting another big win for Crawford. I want to talk about a couple of things coming up, and I want to talk about the dream fights that folks ask me about. And what am I doing? Come on, computer. Of course, we've got what does this say here? The heavyweight division's in some flux too. I'm not even going to talk about that in this video. I was going to say Anthony Joshua will make a second event against Eric Molina. Okay, great. Jesse Vargas, a phenomenal camp. I guess we can start with that. Jesse Vargas versus Manny Pacquiao, and I think that some are saying this is going to be Pacquiao's last fight. I would expect that Pacquiao is going to perform to his ultimate ability, and you're going to see a real difference in class between these two. And I'm expecting Pacquiao to win a big, either lopsided fight or win pretty big. Some of you will disagree with me, but I just don't think that Jesse Vargas has been in a fight with a guy of this caliber in a long, long time. And if you bear with me, I'm going to pull up the couple of things. Oh, you know something else I didn't talk about was Carl Frampton. For those of you in the UK, I'll come back to the schedule. Very much expected Leo Santa Cruz to basically walk through Carl Frampton, and this is a prime example of something I keep telling you for years, that the fighter that controls the middle ground wins the fight. And Al Bernstein and whoever else was calling that fight were amazed that basically Frampton was able to get his punches off first on Leo Santa Cruz. Well, they were straighter and shorter, but again, he was launching a punch when they're out here, nobody could do anything. When they're in here, they're about even. But when they were getting from here to here, that's when Frampton scored almost all of his punches and his shots and hurt Leo Santa Cruz. And it was an amazing performance for coming overseas to to the U.S. to against a naturally bigger fighter and pull off the upset like that. And I will not doubt him again. I was very disappointed watching his fight against Scott Quigg because I thought that was just a garbage fight. And I'm just really very much pleased, and I had to get a shout out to the Irish, to Carl Frampton, because that was an amazing performance. I thought he won the fight going away, and I thought he showed a difference in class. Now Mr. Jesse Vargas, who is fighting against Manny Pacquiao on, well, I guess it's this coming Saturday, the 5th. Basically, I have high doubts because he did look good against Timothy Bradley in the very end of the fight. Looked good against Antonio DeMarco, but at the same time, he's stepping way up in class. If Manny Pacquiao still has his reflexes and still has the fire that he once had. And that's all I'm going to say about the past. And now I'm going to go back to the future. That's kind of funny, actually. But well, I'm kind of in the future because I was just talking about Vargas and Pacquiao coming on this, and Nonito Donair's fighting Jesse Magdaleno back down at 122, which we'll see how much Donaire has left. I expect him to win the fight, and I'm trying to see who else is coming up. Oh, the big fight, in case I don't do a preview show for it. I'll see how this goes, see how the comments is between... I'm not going to go into great detail about this, and that's basically Sergey Kovalev against Andre Ward. Kovalev, in my opinion, is very dangerous, but when they talk about this fight being made, my brain and my gut tells me it's a bad fight for him, because most of you are pushing back saying, well, he beat the living hell out of Bernard Hopkins, and Hopkins and Ward are very similar. There's a lot of similarities. There's one major difference. Even though there's similarities between Hopkins and Andre Ward's reflexes are just a tiny bit, and all it takes is a tiny bit more alert and faster to react than Bernard Hopkins are. So when Kovalev was pushing Hopkins around with his jab and getting him into positions on the ropes and in the corners that he wanted to, the same thing's not going to happen with Ward, because Ward is either going to get out of the way of the jab or counter right hand over the jab. And I've got this gut feeling that Andre Ward is going to pop shot his way to victory over Kovalev. I wouldn't be surprised if he busts him up and maybe scores a stoppage, because Kovalev, he sometimes gets into the habit of eating punches, not often, because his best defense is a good offense. I think most people think of this as a toss-up fight, but I think something is telling me that unless Kovalev hits Ward with something big and changes the complexion of the fight like Terence Crawford did against Victor Postol, I see this going Ward's way. But then again, Ward has made a career, both amateur and professional, of not getting hit by those punches and being in position to score damaging punches, whether it's on the outside or the inside. The concern I have with Andre Ward is that it doesn't look like his punches are moving light heavyweights, at least not good ones, not good light heavyweights. He's not moving them with his punches. The same as Chocolatito at 112 at at 115. All I'm going to say is it's going to be a good fight. but don't be surprised if Andre Ward wins it. Basically just pop shot his way to a clear-cut victory. Now, I want to talk about very quickly, as this is approaching 20 minutes, I want to talk about the dream fights. Arnold Wayne has been posting dream fight after dream fight, and most of the time I try to answer them, and I try to do it in a constructive way where I use common sense logic to really come to a decision, and like a couple of good ones that you've asked, and I welcome them from anybody as long as they're realistic. Asking how Jack Johnson would go against Klitschko is not realistic in my opinion. But going back to what I was saying, the two that I really liked was Carlos Monzon versus Triple G, where I gave Carlos Monzon the advantage. What people don't understand is Carlos Monzon would have like a 5-inch height advantage over Triple G, and a huge reach advantage, and he was very strong in the upper body. There goes MI6 blowing up, by the way. And what I was saying was that he was the best fighter, maybe in history, of fighting tall to his height. So that's why I picked him over Triple G. And something you also have to understand is he was one of the most unlikely, and this is not usually a statistic that you hear about boxers. He won his last 80-something fights in a row. All his troubles were early on in his career, but he gradually got better with age, and he won the last 80, I think 79 or 80-something fights in a row at the end of his career. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it wasn't 80-something, but I think he ended up with 80-something wins or something like that. But he had some remarkable winning streak to end his career. He just too good of a boxer. The other one was Julio Cesar Chavez Sr. versus Carlos Ortiz, the lightweight champion from Puerto Rico. In that fight, and this is why I picked Chavez, pretty much hands down, is that think about intangibles for a second. If you took Chavez's wrapped hands and put them into 6-ounce gloves, which is what they were using back when Carlos Ortiz was the lightweight champion of the world, you saw the damage he did to Edwin Rosario when he fought for the lightweight title against Edwin Rosario. Imagine his hands in 6-ounce gloves hitting Carlos Ortiz, who had been stopped by cuts. Was against Ismael Laguna, or no? Maybe he wasn't stopped by cuts, but he's been basically busted up before. And I just see that the converse side of this is what would happen when Carlos Ortiz with 6-ounce gloves hit Chavez in the head. Here's the situation. I think that Chavez was more adept at taking punishment than the kind of punishment he could dish out with smaller gloves on his hands, and just he would just be in Ortiz's face and on top of him all night long, and the body punishment with the way he could hit would be incredible. But so I welcome those, and just to recap about what I was saying about Twitter. If you've got other ideas, I was also hearing about a couple of other things on the radio, that there's a group. I don't know if any of you in the States have heard of a guy named Jay Sekulow, who's an attorney that argues cases in front of the Supreme Court. He has an organization called the ACLJ, I think, American Civil Liberties Judiciary, or something like that. Where he argues cases in front of the Supreme Court. He's got a radio show that's on for like only an hour a day, like at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And they always mention that they're broadcasting video on Facebook and something called Periscope. I've looked at it once, and I'm wondering, again, feedback. I need feedback. Would it be better to have broadcasts or videos uploaded to Twitter or Periscope? I'm not doing the Facebook crap. Not doing it. There ain't no way in hell, unless I have to create a whole nother page and then do it, and I just don't. It's almost as bad as YouTube. I don't like it. So whatever this Periscope thing, if some of you know what it's about, give me some feedback. And Twitter, I'm open to ideas, because I'm about at my rope's end with YouTube, and we'll see how fast this video uploads, and hopefully I'll be back to maybe review Pacquiao and then do a real preview of Kovalev and Ward. Thanks, everybody.